Hey everyone, I'm Henry, and this is day 44 of a no alcohol cleanse. Um, I'm a professor of philosophy and religion, and I'm a spiritual leader. If you do have substance abuse issues, please get professional help, medical help. You deserve the best, and getting over it, you're not alone. A lot of people face these problems. So today I want to talk about homeostasis, which a lot of the medical professionals have been talking about in terms of alcohol. So homeostasis is very important. It's the idea that your your body maintains the correct levels of important parameters, important aspects. In terms of alcohol for the brain, um, we've been talking a lot about dopamine and these other neurotransmitters, these chemicals in the brain. And so homeostasis would mean keeping those levels at their correct level. So the brain works to keep all these chemicals, these neurotransmitters, at the correct level, at the same level. So homeostasis means, homeo means same, stasis means standing or state. So the brain tries to keep a steady state. The body tries to keep a steady state. That's homeostasis. That's a sense of imbalance. It's the idea that you have certain chemical levels or temperature or salt levels in your body, and if an external influence affects your body, that your body or brain can respond to correct it to the correct level, to get that steady state, the correct levels. So for example, temperature would be a good one. The body wants to maintain a very exact temperature in spite of external influences. So how can it do that? Well, if you are cold, what your body will actually do is constrict a lot of your small blood vessels, your capillaries, so it preserves the heat in the core. If you're hot, it will open those blood vessels so your blood will flow to your extremities and get cooled down, sort of like an elephant's ears. And if you're even hotter than that, your body will start sweating. So we know the body, so that the sweat evaporates, cooling the body, and we're familiar with that. It's really an amazing thing that the body knows how to do that. It wants to maintain that constant set temperature. And if you have an infection, the body has a way to increase that temperature. But homeostasis, the idea that the brain is at its correct level. And this is so important for spirituality, because I think that our brain, our whole nervous system as it connects with our body, is really pivotal for how we feel, how we think, how we experience the world. And really attentiveness to that experience is a very key aspect of what I define as spirituality. So homeostasis in terms of alcohol is that alcohol will disrupt the precise levels of these neurotransmitters in the brain. So we think differently, we feel differently. For many people it's a very positive feeling because we're getting this big rush. But then the brain tries to go back to homeostasis, back to the level it wants to keep. Just if you go for a run or you take a hot shower, you get too hot, the body wants to get to the temperature it wants to. So the same with the brain. So the brain returns to homeostasis, and that returning to homeostasis cannot feel as good as the original buzz. So that's one way of looking what alcohol does. It really disrupts that state of all the neurotransmitters in the brain. What I have also been looking at is it's not just a matter of dopamine. There are a lot of different transmitters, a lot of different chemicals in the brain that affect our state of mind and our spiritual state. So we want to really look at alcohol disrupts that. And so for a spiritual or psychological question is, why would we want to do something that really disrupts our homeostasis, our steady state, our state of who we are? I mean, of course, we like it because sometimes we like to have something a little different. We like to have that rush, but we can get that rush elsewhere. I mean, really, if you drink a lot, you're sort of using this, get out of jail easy card, this easy button, and you really haven't developed the emotions to deal with situations. So, for example, we were talking about social situations. You may have to learn how to interact socially without the crutch of alcohol. And I would argue spiritually that it's going to be much better because it's going to be more authenticity based. And learning how to do that will develop a better skills. You'll be more fully engaged. You'll be engaged with your whole person. One example of homeostasis, or one metaphor for it, might be in a computer. So you have your computer, and there are chips, central processing unit, that creates heat. There's a lot of electrical activity going on there, and it produces heat. The same with the video card. So the computer will monitor that. So, for example, in a video card, it's the part of the computer that deals with what's on your monitor or display. Now, if you're using that a lot, the chips on the video card can produce a lot of heat. So usually there's a fan attached to it. So if the temperature gets too high, the fan comes on. And then if that's not enough, the video card can actually shut down the whole computer system because things are overheating. So that would be an example of a system that tries to get to a steady state, a homeostasis, and reacts to external influences. So if there are changes from the outside or even something caused by the inside, it will maintain a steady state. So the question, and that protects the computer from overheating, obviously. So the question is, for alcohol, it does many things to the brain and body, and the body is tending to fight that, to return to its original steady state, its range, its normal range, its normal range of dopamine, peaks and valleys flowing naturally because of what the body and the person is doing. And then you get this extraneous substance come in, alcohol comes in, disrupts that, and the brain has to work towards getting rid of all those chemicals, building up the right chemicals. And that's why we feel that tiredness or stupor after drinking. We don't sleep right because things are not in homeostasis. And our brain is very good at bringing us to sleep. And it's very easy to disrupt that. Experts have talked about how they personally and professionally have seen sleep is disrupted, temperature is disrupted. So sleep is absolutely critical, and you need that homeostasis. You need that precise set of parameters in order to have a fully restful sleep with REM sleep. And that is really a miracle on its own, sleep. So I would again argue that we need to really look at why we're taking a substance that disrupts that homeostasis. Is that something we really want to be doing to ourselves? And again, looking elsewhere for happiness, joy, and meaning in life. So many people, as I've looked at this issue of alcohol, become teetotalers or very rare users of alcohol when you actually look at what it's doing. So it appears that alcohol is not just about dopamine. Dopamine is really important. They've studied it in terms of drug addiction, and all the major drugs experts tell us have a big dopamine rush. But it's more than that. Dr. Rebecca Erickson, Ph.D., says that a single drink will also affect serotonin levels. But the long-term use of alcohol will lower serotonin levels in the person who uses regularly. And that can initiate depression, make things worse. So serotonin is another one of these neurotransmitters, these chemicals in the brain between the neurons. Where the neurons connect, there's chemicals that go back and forth. And dopamine and serotonin are two of the big ones. So serotonin is very important for our sense of well-being. And not surprisingly, alcohol appears to affect the serotonin levels. Dr. Hironaka reports in Pharmacology of Alcohol and Alcohol Use Disorder. Alcohol acts on various neurotransmitters such as GABA, glutamate, dopamine, serotonin, and endogenous opioids, opioid-like substances that are endogenous or inside the brain already. Alcohol is both affecting GABA in many ways. So here we see that it's not just about dopamine, it's about a very complex state of various neurotransmitters, chemicals that we rely on in our brain that have a very important emotional impact on us, how we feel, our sense of being, our sense of happiness. And so alcohol will disrupt those neurotransmitters. And this is my point. Spiritually is what I have found, and I think I call it spirituality because it deals with very careful attentiveness to how we feel in each moment through the day. And meditation is one of the main ways to get there. That when you disrupt this complex set of neurochemicals and how the brain is working, you are upsetting something that you really are relying on to provide your sense of well-being. And that sense of well-being, the scientists are telling us, is very dependent on these neurotransmitters. GABA, serotonin, dopamine, glutamate. So I would say that's the scientific explanation for what we can see, that the next day or hours after drinking we don't feel as good. Or some people, if you drink too much, you begin to feel dizzy, lightheaded, out of it, a little confused, a little unhappy, a little too much, a little where your thought processes are not going so well, where you're not feeling your emotions so well, where negative things happen and you feel those negative things more. So those feelings that we have after drinking, even during drinking, but the day after, it's a sense because it is because most likely the neurotransmitters are trying to return to homeostasis, trying to get back to normal, parameters. And we don't feel as good as that's going on because our brain is doing this work of trying to reconstruct that steady state, that homeostasis of all the various chemicals going on. And that's the scientific answer of the spiritual, emotional reaction we get the next day. It might not be a full-blown hangover, but it's tiredness not being 100%. So, my point is that it's not worth it. And when you add in all of that to the original disruption from drinking, it's really not giving you anything, because it's going to be taken back as your body fights to return to the state it was originally in and what it is naturally designed to be in. In the longer term, the brain apparently will downregulate and upregulate certain of these neurotransmitters. It will change pathways on where the neurons connect. So the brain is doing a lot of work. The brain begins to rewire itself. It begins to make some of these chemicals less effective and others more effective. It will try to prevent these big dopamine rushes, these big changes, because it is returning to a very complex homeostasis, and down-regulating and up-regulating is part of that. So it's changing and reacting to. So not just bringing certain things up to certain levels, but changing the very processes by which those levels are achieved and how things interact. And we experience that as tolerance. So you need more and more drinks to get the same kind of buzz as before, to get that same kind of well-being. Because the brain is actively downregulating the effects of alcohol, because brain knows that this is not something that it is programmed for. So it will actually begin this process of where the cells connect, how much of the chemicals are going to be used in a very complex way. So the brain is working against the consumption of alcohol, and that effort is probably something that we experience as not very pleasant, because the brain is doing a lot of work to do that. It's taking resources to do that. And again, do we want to really do something that isn't involving the brain in all of these processes of downregulation, upregulation, and it's not really to our best interest for our own happiness. In this article from the National Library of Medicine, entitled Impact of Alcohol Consumption on Male Fertility Potential, they do a review of some aspects of alcohol that are general. In general, alcohol acts by suppressing the activity of the nervous system. So it suppresses the nervous system. It's a depressant. It first starts out as a bit of a stimulant in most people, and then becomes a depressant. So it slows down many parts of the brain, especially the prefrontal cortex, the front of the brain, where a lot of our thinking, planning goes on, our higher reasoning. And then what happens is, if people do a lot of alcohol use, once they reach a state of abstinence, it's characterized by hyperactivation of the system itself, with tachycardia, racing heart, hypertension, high blood pressure, excessive sweating, tremors. So once you stop the alcohol, then the nervous system springs back to life and becomes very active. And that can actually feel not good. It can feel like you are irritated, you're agitated, you have some anxiety, and then you're actually not sleeping as well because of that. So maybe there's two ways that alcohol can hurt your sleep, in enough while you're drinking, and then when you get off of it, you're returning back to homeostasis, you're not sleeping as well. This article saying alcohol suppresses the activity of the nervous system. And I think we can pause and really look spiritually, psychologically. Do we really want to do something that is suppressing the main tool where our spirit resides, in our brains and nervous system, in our body? And we don't learn to find happiness through the natural capacities of our nervous system because it's being suppressed. Well, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to just suppress our thinking minds, our brains. We want to be fully engaged with our reality. And sometimes that's going to be difficult when we can't rely on the easy button. We can't rely on that emotional crutch. We can't just be in social situations and then just drink alcohol as the be-all and end-all. We actually have to learn how to be social without those rose-colored glasses and be real. So to sum up today, I think I have a better picture of what the scientists are saying, that our brain chemistry is affected not just with dopamine, but with serotonin, GABA, probably many other chemicals, and this amazing brain that we have, this amazing nervous system, and that the brain wants to be at a certain state, in a certain state. It wants to have these chemicals at certain levels. And we call that process homeostasis. If something from the outside or from the inside affects levels and brings them too high or too low, the brain works to bring them to the correct levels in that state of balance, that homeostasis, just like our body temperature. And we are really playing around with that. And I think this explains scientifically, medically, what the whole experience of alcohol and other drugs is. It's an external substance that comes in and makes us feel certain things, but that the brain will react to that by trying to return to its steady state, its homeostasis. And it's a variety of these chemicals that really are not just chemicals in us, but they sort of define who we are and what we are and how we feel. And if we learn to use our brain, our nervous system, at its normal level of homeostasis, of normal functional levels, we will find happiness using that as our tool. So we don't need these big unnatural shots of dopamine. We can live in the reality of our lives and learn to find true meaning in there. Friendship, love, the pleasures of life, the wonders of this universe, all the joys and wonderful things in human life, and really go after those. Alcohol becomes the one path you can go down. But if you go down that path, there will be good things on it, some good experiences, but you're actually making a choice, and then you're not going down another path, and there will be good things on that path as well. But you have to, I think, make a choice. I experience you can't really do both. I don't think you can really do both. You can't go down that path of playing with this chemical, this drug, this very powerful drug, and sort of play at it and try to make it work without paying a price, not only of not feeling so well the next day and later days and weeks, and how it affects your thinking, but you're missing out on another path. And people who are true alcoholics, when they reach sobriety, and it can take them many, many years to get to experience more and more pleasure in life, they experience all those good things in life. So you have to, I think, make a tough decision. And 90 days is a way of making that decision for a limited time, so you don't feel too bound by it. So it's not just the brain reaching homeostasis, 1 or 2 or 3 days after drinking. Yeah, after a few days, the brain's very good at getting its levels correct. But you remember the experience. There's something that you remember. Your higher brain remembers. Your basal brain remembers, most likely. Wow, that was good. So you look forward to it. And you become someone who's always thinking about that path. And you're not addicted, but you're thinking about it. You're holding it out as a possibility. And that, I think, for me, is a spiritual thing. Choosing how to live your life, choosing what paths you're going to go down. And if there's always that alcohol path there, and you're thinking about it, and you're trying to bargain and make deals and make exceptions, you're wasting that space. You're using your imagination, your life imagination, thinking about that, thinking about how cold the beer is, how sweet the drink is, instead of thinking about, oh, I want to talk to my friend about how he goes fishing, how it was when he was sailing out on the bay. And you're not thinking about all these other paths. So it takes from other paths, even beyond the homeostasis issue. It's the life choice issue. It's who I'm going to be as a person. It's the fullness of who I am. I'm going down a little bit too much in that path. I'm thinking about it a little too much. And in that sense, it's easier just to make that one decision, just to not ever go down that path. So you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think about it. You focus. You move your focus over, because it's very hard to be a light to moderate drinker without thinking about socially drinking all the time, or frequently. It sort of becomes a habit. I mean, one thing I've noticed, people who are social drinkers, whenever there's something social on, they're drinking. That, I think there can be a certain clarity and sense of completeness with making the decision once and letting it go. And then you can focus on other things. And so 90 days is really great to have that absolute decision for that, for 90 days. So it seems limited. You can do this experiment to see how it works. And after a few weeks or 30 days, it's easy to go back. But 90 days is really a long time to make this change. And it can be very productive for you. So good luck. Wish you the best with it. And it's worked for me. I hope it works for you.